All right, so it's our Monday night call. I'm pretty excited about having a special guest on tonight, Vince Martinez, one of my best friends in the world. A lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the things that you see inside of Convene are because of this man. He is my true mentor. He's the person I turn to for business. He's a true business leader in industry. He was in the Marine Corps and also for the military still, in a sense, with some of the stuff that he does as a contractor. So, Vince, how you doing tonight? Are you going to pay me for that?
Great. I'm doing great. Checks in the mail. Thank you very much.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, I really appreciate that intro. And let me just say one thing. That's some nice swag you got on there, man. That's good looking stuff right there.
Yeah, we don't mess around here at Convene. Look at Tom up there in the corner. He's got his hat on. We don't mess around. Everybody should have some Convene swag, if you don't. ConveneCommunities.com, the shop.
Hey, well, I just wanted to thank you for the kind comments. Two, really appreciate you asking me back to talk to the group again. And three, really thankful for the opportunity to talk to everybody at Convene 23. I thought that was really, for the time I was there, I know I missed a good portion of it, but Matt caught me up on all the rest of it. What a phenomenal event, and I'm really excited for everybody. Relative to the things that I have to add, I'm just a contributor of perspective. Everything that you guys are doing inside the Convene environment is clearly, a very, it's a phenomenal thing. I think based on what I know of the communities that you guys are leading, you're going to make changes in people's lives and hopefully make changes in your life. And I'm just glad to be part of that. So just a real quick overview, and this is just going to be an overview because most of you guys have seen this already. The things that we talked about at Convene 23 were essentially the organizational elements that are described on the slide there. So any organization, like we talked about, essentially is comprised of either the leadership element, the management element, or the execution element. So if you guys go, did your own research, or you're familiar with your own business environments, you know that there's obviously more layers than that, right? So there's directorships, there's supervisors, there's different levels of things that happen inside of an organization. But getting back to the comment that Tom made, right? There's art in simplicity. That's what we've been taught as Marines. And what we try to do is we try to find those universal truths and then convey those in as simple and easy to understand ways that we can. So looking at any organization, the leadership element, basically, you can see on the slide there, talks about those people that are generally associated with leadership that get all the sunlight. They're the ones that are out in front. They're usually ones that are the known quantities in any organization, and they're responsible for vision and strategy. Management is that layer below. They're the ones that take the vision and they move that into processes. And then they basically manage resources inside of the organization to move that organization towards its organizational goals. And then the execution element, those are the ones that are pulling the magic together and making stuff happen for the organization. So we described that very quickly. I won't go over the whole slide again, but the bottom line is the reason I like to use the picture of an iceberg is because the preponderance of the things that you see in the real world are tied to the leadership element, but the majority of activities associated with any organization typically occur under the waterline in that management or execution element. So that's just a real quick overview. Then we talked a little bit about the knowledge and communication paradigm. I use this to kind of generally describe levels of understanding and communication methods for individual organizations. And again, trying to keep this, there's obviously a lot of nuances here based on organization, but these are kind of the macros, right? So on the left side of the chart, you see a vertical line that basically shows levels of understanding. So as you would expect, the people at the bottom of the organization, these are your technical experts, are going to have a depth of understanding inside their technical expertise or their areas of expertise. So if you're a machinist, you know how to machine parts. If you're a legal clerk, you know what you're doing relative to being a legal clerk, right? And then as you move up the organization, you eventually get to the top of the pyramid, which is a breadth of understanding. So if you assume just assume a large organization in this case, the people at the top of the organization have to be able to talk about all aspects of the company. They have to be a mile wide and an inch deep. That's how they communicate. So you can imagine if you're in the middle in that management element, you have to be able to convey both information from the top end of the pyramid or the top end of the iceberg down to the bottom end of the iceberg, and vice versa. You have to be able to translate information from the bottom side up to the leadership organization organizational element rather, to make sure that the organization is working as it should. And then so communications on the right side of that chart, when you're talking to people that are technical experts, you're generally talking a very detailed way. You're talking about very specific things tied to their individual job performance. As you start to move up the food chain into the management element, you're now talking more about resource management and how are you allocating resources to get organizational goals. And that's generally on a broader sense of things, not necessarily in the same detail that you'll talk to the people at the execution level on. And then ultimately at the top, you have to be able to summarize all of that to the leaders in a very basic way, but something that conveys depth of understanding. So those are the things that we talked about just very quickly at the organization. I don't know what that was. And then these were just things that I offered. I won't go over this slide because, but you know, you could see these slides. I think Matt's got these hung up on the website. But you know, these are some of the attributes of Convene that I think are very meaningful to any organizational perspective. So for those that weren't at Convene, I talked about how 4 years ago I was a senior director for education and training for an aerospace company. Obviously, the Convene ecosystem is far more mature today than it was 4 years ago. But I was able to take the platform 4 years ago and apply it to a particular problem for one of our customers. And it was essentially building and delivering a curriculum for high-end, large unmanned aircraft system for an international customer. We were basically training those individuals both on maintaining, operating, and employing that platform. And this was a country that was not native English speakers. And so all the attributes associated with Convene enabled us to do that as a platform of choice. And it worked out like a champ. I left that company shortly after, but I used the, after we implemented it, but I used the leadership, management, and execution level structure to pull in people, experts, if you will, inside the company to cover down on all those three things. So the bottom line for this particular approach is whether you're a one-person enterprise or you're a 500-person company, anytime you move into a business setting, you have to make sure you execute at the leadership, management, and execution level inside of your own organization. And if you're a one-person enterprise, you still have to make sure you do that. That's part of good standard business practices, and it's just a way to think through how you go about executing your own personal endeavors. When you start talking about a community inside of the Convene ecosystem, think about the community as the top of that organizational picture, right? So it's the very top. If you just think in terms of boxes that tier out in the form of a pyramid, a community is the very top end of the spectrum inside of the Convene ecosystem. So you are the person that has kind of brought the energy and the idea to manage a community of interest inside the Convene environment, right? You're using your network of experts to be able to build something of value that will basically be propelled to consumers in some form or fashion to generate some form of return. That's either profit-based return, or it could be an altruistic-based return. But at the end of the day, you're gonna tier an organization to be able to deliver a set of deliverables or goods or offerings to a community of interest with some form of feedback, some form of information exchange, some form of standardized approach. And so what the Convene ecosystem does is it basically gives you that built-in pyramid of blocks. So what's the community that you're interested in, if I can ask? And if I'm pressing you too hard, don't feel any pressure. This is just trying to drive the conversation. What is the area of interest that you want to bring to bear?
So the community looks like substance abuse counseling.
Okay.
I focus on trauma. Working with individuals with trauma,
Okay.
and the other side of what my business looks like is working with families that have special needs children. There's a lot of, there's a variety of leadership that moves in with what my business is. And it's many different ages. It is education, it's substance abuse, it's counseling, it's trauma. It is, the vision is the 2-minute, the 2-second moment is bringing together a world that people can understand themselves in.
Okay. Matt's going to hate me for this. He's going to hate me for this. I'm going to tell you this right now. And maybe everyone else will hate me for this too. It's time to put a mind map up here, Matt.
Oh, good Lord. All right.
So-
This is, everybody, this is important, but this is like Vince, this is how, like Vince is getting this ready. I'm telling you, this is how I've literally gone through these exercises with Vince and created Convene. This is one of his magic things that he's done for me and for Convene and for other business ventures that we've been in. The one he talked about, the contract, it was all built off a mind map. So Vince, you can share when you're ready.
Okay. Let me do that. All right. Can everybody see central topic in the middle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is this little program that I like to put to use. It's just nothing more than a mind mapping tool. So this is a good way to kind of structure things in a way where you can kind of put together logical flows of information. So just as an exercise for the group, if you're willing to work with me on this, I'd like to walk you through a couple of things, just using your offerings as a sample. Are you okay with that?
Yes, you talking to me?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So give me 3 words that describe what you're trying to do.
Substance abuse services, but it's bigger than that.
I understand. So, but would you say that's okay? So give me some of the sub. So I heard you say counseling, right?
Yes, sir.
You say working with families, right?
And I would say special needs community.
Okay. Special needs
Yes.
community, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now in counseling, what do you want to specialize in? Like, what would you talk about? Just substance abuse,
Trauma.
trauma.
Mhm.
How about support, right? Family support.
I would call it, for me, I would call it resource support.
Resource support. Great. Okay.
Any recovery?
Yes, absolutely. You could say recovery with the substance abuse if you wish. I mean, could say substance abuse / recovery. They go hand in hand.
Okay.
They should.
All right. What about working with families? What do you want to do with that?
Unity,
Okay.
positive solutions,
Okay. Anything else?
and resources.
Okay. What about special needs communities?
Education,
Okay.
parenting,
Okay.
and again, resources.
Resources. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, I see your mapping. I see how it grows from one topic. I see how it grows.
Yeah,
That I might be ignorant with how that.
That's okay, because I'll continue to build on this, right? So this is a community, right?
Yes, sir.
This is a group.
Wow.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Now, substance abuse is probably, I don't know what you want to call this. Is it a course? Is it a, what are you trying to deliver here? Is it in-person counseling? Is it
It's online and in person, actually.
Okay, so we'll go online. How about online education? How about that? Just as a starter point.
Okay.
Online educational offering. Shift this over so I can actually see it, right? So forth and so on, right? So
Yes, sir.
ETC, I'm just going to put ETC. All right, so your community at the very top end, this is sideways. I probably could have flipped it around the other way, but the community is on the top end, right?
Yes, sir.
Underneath that substance abuse services community, you have three subgroups that you would establish. One is a counseling group, one is a working with families group, and one is a special needs community group. Inside of those individual groups, you've broken out offerings, right? To put forth to your community of interest. And then you can see those listed there. And those in this community could be a range of things. But at the end of the day, as simple as this graph is, that's exactly what Convene is.
Wow.
So you start with the community, you tier out to groups, and then you move into sub-elements, and you can tier out as often and as much as you need to. So, conceptually speaking, let's just say you come up with 10 classes for each one of these. You would hang
I
those.
have those and I do them now.
Yep. So all this is, all right, Matt. So I'm gonna go back to your screen, Matt.
Yep.
Just to reiterate some of the things that we talked about at the Convene 23 conference, right? So what Convene is an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of tools. So you have to think about it as a tool in your toolbox. You guys collectively are bringing your expertise to bear inside of the community, the Convene community's ecosystem, right? So you've developed your expertise. You know what you want to offer. What Convene ecosystem is essentially a platform for you to do that. It sets up a place for you to not only set up your business, but it says it's in assuming that there's profit-based people in this group as well as nonprofit based. Just think about it. You set up your endeavor inside the Convene ecosystem, but it's nothing but a tool. You still have to come up with all of the things that you're going to put inside this tool in order to offer to your community of interest, right? How you use the Convene app is really largely limited to one's imagination. So most people will kind of self-limit to what I would consider a learning management system approach, where I'm going to go into this thing, I'm going to tier out a bunch of offerings, and I'm going to create a PowerPoint brief, and I'm going to deliver this, and then that's how I'm going to reach out to my community of interest. Well, that's one way, certainly does that. But there's also other things that you can do. And what's different about Convene is that it's like we talked about, it's the art of simplicity. Matt and I over time have worked with some very complex industry partners, some very complex endeavors in terms of knowledge management, concurrency management, enterprise level information management, some very, very high level stuff. What Matt's done with Convene is he actually created something that's accessible to everybody. So you're not, it shouldn't be that difficult to think through this when you start to really think about how I just put together that mind map. It's nothing more than simple tiering. And then you determine how you best want to reach out to your folks. We'll use this teleconference or this Zoom call as an example, right? Matt puts this on where you put this one every month, Matt? Something
Every
like
week, every Monday.
week. So he not only uses the Convene ecosystem to put content out there in terms of videos or PowerPoints, but he also uses this type of tool here, this collaborative resource called Zoom to pull in people and actually have dialogues. So again, it's just how you choose to offer this. It also, when you get into the more, I don't know, I'll call it the more complex aspects of Convene, he's also built some, project and program management capabilities that I think they're going to be rolling out fairly soon, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. But at the end of the day, there's other things that you can do to help manage that community just with this platform. You can use this platform to coordinate with all of your subject matter experts. So when you talk to the 10 people that you say are of high value and interest to your community, that you can work with them, you could have dialogue with them, and we use the term asynchronous dialogue. So in the sense of a global consumer base. It doesn't necessarily have to be tied to live conversations. You can do this asynchronous, where people type in their inputs across the globe, and then you get to them when you wake up, and vice versa. It also gives you a place to house everything in one central place. So instead of having a learning management system on one app somewhere, manage your files via Dropbox somewhere else, have there's a myriad of different things that you can tap into to run any enterprise. This gives you a single login, what they call single source logins, SSO type of tool, where all you got to do is have people plug into the community, and they have access to everything. And then ultimately, this is a service that Matt provides via Convene community platforms. Think like every one of us has. We pay for Microsoft Office licenses. That's what Convene is. It's a license to an ecosystem that'll enable you to do all that. Yeah, and then I would just offer, one, thank you for playing. There's a lot of pressure, so appreciate that. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to do was just show when you really understand the tool, and this is what everyone else on this call who has been around the Convene Communities platform for a while understands, is actually fairly intuitive. Sometimes, like we were joking earlier, Tom was joking, Marines like pictures. I'm a retired Marine. Why do we like pictures? Well, we like to draw in the dirt with sticks. Why do we do that? For the same reason Matt talked about, is there's a stick and there's dirt everywhere. So when we get sent somewhere to the globe to take care of business, that's all we need, right? So we train ourselves to work on the art of simplicity, but we do very complex things. And there's a lot of other things that we can talk about. So, but what I'd offer to you is just, one, kind of think through how you want to tier out what you're going to offer. And then between Tom and Matt and all of the things that they've already got on the website, from the training and all of that stuff, I think you'll find a home based on what I heard you describe. Sounds to me like it fits very well with the construct, and looking forward to see what you do as we move forward. But I think it's a good match for what you described.
Many of you, and raise your hand if you've worked with me on a strategy session. Who's worked in here on a strategy session with me? A lot of you, right?
Yep.
That, Lisa, that's really what we just did. Is you got the first glimpse of a strategy session, and Convene is organized that way. Like what Vince is talking about, it's very user friendly to help you grow in whatever direction that you need to go. But we try to give you all the resources that you need, meaning the learning management system, the collaboration side of it, the document management, the project management, the CRM. Now, but here's the deal. Everybody that's on this call, and this is what I want to reiterate, and I'm going to give it back to Vince to close this out, his part of it. You wouldn't be on this call if you weren't a leader. You wouldn't be on this call if you weren't trying to take initiative with your content, and what you have makes you special. All Convene is a resource that we're trying to help put into place for you. A lot of us are so passion driven that we don't turn it into a business, and that's okay. If you just want to make it your hobby, that's available to you within Convene, because you can use the site for free. You can build as many free groups as you want. That's why I give it away to nonprofits for free. But you can do whatever it is that you want inside of Convene to grow it as a hobby. You'll see a lot of people here are purpose driven through their life, and the tagline behind Convene should really hit home to you is real life, real people, real experiences. And everybody that's on this call tonight, every single person, there's 20 people right now. Every single person has a story. Everybody has something that they've been through. So can we harness these stories? Can we harness these passions and turn it into a platform with a purpose that can help other people out? So that's what everybody on here has, has a story that they can talk through. So Vince, real quick before we transition, I'll let you talk, close us out from your part.
Well, I guess that for this, if we're gonna kick over to another recording session, I'll just kind of close out what we just talked about, right? Which is try to think through this thing in terms of a tiered approach. That's how the platform is set up. If I make the assumption that everybody here, so let me describe to you my background. So I'm a retired Marine. I'm also a business owner multiple times over, right? So, at the end of the day, what I learned very quickly in business is business, and business is not a hobby, which is what he was trying to get at, right? So the second thing that I'd offer to you, which sounds a little bit harsher, but is actually still the truth, and maybe we'll talk more about this in the second session, is business is also not a social program, right? Now, you can have businesses that deliver social impact, but don't confuse social impact with a business model. So everything that I've described that Matt has asked me to come and talk to are really largely tied to those steps that you need to take in order to affect a business, which drives a profit. And even in the course of a nonprofit, right? Nonprofits, that doesn't mean resources aren't flowing. Some of the best people in the best paid people in the country run nonprofits, right? They're just not drawing a profit on the back end of their offerings, but they're still paying people full salaries and full staffs and all that stuff, right? So you have to think in terms of business and money and make all of the decisions that you need to make in accordance with that model, right? There's leadership things, there's management things, and there's execution level things that need to be considered if you're going to drive yourself towards the resources to be able to manage whatever enterprise you're running, whether that's a 1-person enterprise or a 500-person enterprise. The whole test here is make sure that you're testing yourself against that model to make sure you're covering down on all the things that are required to do that and to do that effectively.
Last thing I do want Vince to talk about before we transition is one up, one down, one left, one right. This to me is so important in life, and so important in all of us as we go into and we start doing our business inside of Convene. So talk about that real quick, Vince.
All right. So again, going back to very simple things, right? So you can apply this to, I know that there's people that are specialists in sports, soccer, whatever. So it's pretty simple. When you think about organizations, and I'll use the Marine Corps as an example. I think people are still not on mute, Matt, because I keep seeing the screen pop up. It's important to think one up. So if you're thinking about the organization chart, right? If I'm in the middle, I'm the manager. I need to think one up, which is at the leadership level, and I need to think one down, which is at the execution level. And then I also need to be able to think one left and one right. So it's just situational awareness. That's all it is. So when you start talking about gaining advantages, and these are just some of the things that I've learned about over the course of my career, is information dominance is a thing, right? So there are advocates and there are adversaries everywhere. Not to break this down to a Marine-centric perspective, but that's essentially what business is, right? It's a business in many times is like war, and anybody who hasn't figured it out yet will. It's a very harsh environment. But when you're an idealist, like everybody on this phone call, there's ways to take that environment and turn it into good, right? But it is an adversarial place. People want to be the winners. They don't want to be the losers. And they'll come at you in a million different ways that you can't even forecast when you start to become even remotely successful. So the back end of that is what I've learned over time is that if I tend to focus in on my level of expertise, so let's just say I choose to move at an execution level of understanding in detail, and I convey all of my information at a very in-depth way. And I'm trying to pull people in to either throw money at the company or to invest resources here or there or to become partners. If I don't communicate well with them and I don't communicate at the appropriate level, I've learned that I won't be successful. So I've had to learn that I have to physically make myself and mentally make myself think in multiple different levels simultaneously, especially if you're a one-person endeavor. You have to be able to bridge all three. So if you're talking to a venture capitalist, or you're talking to a bank, or you're talking to another partner company who's got their own endeavors, and you're trying to create a relationship, you have to be able to talk at that leadership level. So again, going back to the example, if you're that manager in the middle, you have to be able to understand and convey information at the very top end. So that's one up. At the same time, you have to understand all the variables that are going on below you, right, in the execution level. Otherwise, you can't really convey issues effectively. You can't really manage processes effectively. So that's one up and one down. One left and one right is nothing more than common sense, right? When you have a division that's next to you, or another partner that's next to you. Let's just use a soccer field as an example. If I'm not a soccer player, you'll figure this out when I talk. If I'm in the middle of the field, right? and I've got somebody on the right and I've got somebody on the left, and I look to the left and I see that his shoe is untied or her shoe is untied, do I just let that stand? Or do I tell them, hey man, why don't you tie your shoe so you don't trip? Of course, I'm going to tell them to tie their shoe. I really hope that they would do the same thing for me, right? But expanding your vision outside of that very specialized execution level will always make you more effective. So when Matt and I say, think one up, one down, one left, one right, that's nothing more than a simple moniker to force yourself to think outside of yourself for half a second, to think about the drivers all across you. And then when you convey or run into friction, if you can articulate issues on that level, one up, one down, one left, one right, you generally will find yourself at an information advantage, which will always be better for you.
So one thing that makes us different than other platforms, right, is in other platforms, you don't have one up, one down, one left, one right. In other platforms, you're your own entity. If you're using that platform called Kajabi, it's all about you. Inside of Convene, you're able to go one left, one right, one up, one down. You're able to go and work with other people. Your one down that's your members. Your up is Convene leadership, people that are helping, bring this resource to bear. Well, one left, one right is you can't do everything in the world. Focus on what you do and incentivize others to work with you, right? So you don't have to provide every answer in the world. If you provide counseling services to, like you said, Lisa, well, guess what? There's other people who teach people how to invest in stocks that will give you a referral fee for sending somebody over to them. That's one of the beauties about this site. Again, Dr. Mel did last weekend. I think a lot of us on here have, parents who are in her realm of what her fall prevention course is. Well, guess what? If you take that fall prevention course and pays a referral fee. So we can all help each other out. So it falls within that leadership kind of program. We're all leaders again on this call. Does that make sense? We're here to help each other out. That's the construct of Convene. And that's one of the things that makes it beautiful.